Somebody sent me a video this week. The title said, 2 cheap metals will end every insect problem in your garden forever. Copper pushed into the ground, zinc nails hammered into your stakes, and the bugs never come back. Not this year and not any year after. A discovery, it said. A discovery they tried to bury. I watched the whole thing, and I am going to tell you the truth about it, because you are the reason I make these, and I will not lie to you to keep you sitting here. Most of it is not true, and a small part of it will hurt your garden if you do it. My name is Frank Chen. I grew up in a village in Guangdong, and we grew most of what we ate in a small plot behind the house. In ground, we worked by hand, with no store to run to, and no bottle to buy, and no money to buy one with. We had bugs. Everyone who has ever grown a single row of food has had bugs. My grandmother fought them her whole life, and I watched her do it, and I am going to give you what actually works. The plain old things, the ones too dull and too cheap for anyone to make a buried secret video about. But first, I have to tell you what is wrong with the metals, because the more important lesson is not about bugs at all. It is about how to tell for the rest of your life when someone is feeding you a beautiful lie. Here is what the video claims. It says, copper in the soil gives a crawling insect a little electric shock. It says, copper and zinc together, sitting in wet dirt, make a weak battery under your whole garden, a circuit, and it uses a fine old German word for it, a tension field. It says, this current, too small for you to feel, drives the bugs away, and even reaches up and changes where the flying ones land, at the exact height of your knee. It uses the word galvanic, which is a real word. It names universities, Auburn, Cornell, Ohio State. It gives you numbers with decimals in them, 96%, 37%. And it tells you about a typewritten report from 1923, hidden in an archive, that it says almost nobody has read in 100 years. Almost none of that is real. I will give it the one thing that is real because I am fair. A strip of copper will, sometimes, slow a slug. A slug is a wet, soft, crawling thing, and copper reacts a little against that wetness, and the slug would rather not cross it. That much is true. And even that, when careful gardeners tested it properly in recent years, in real gardens instead of on a table, did far less than the stories promised. But a beetle is not a slug. An aphid is not a slug. A cabbage moth has wings and flies over your fence and does not know or care what metal you buried in the dirt below it. There is no shock. There is no battery. There is no tension field humming under your tomatoes. An insect does not carry some charge that copper answers to. Somebody took one real word, galvanic, and one small true thing, a slug disliking copper, and on those 2 little stones, they built a whole cathedral out of air and hung university names over the door so you would walk inside and believe you were somewhere solid. Learn the shape of that trick because you will see it again next week on some other channel about some other miracle. First, a real word, so your ear trusts it. Then, one small thing that is actually true, so that if you check the easy part, it holds up, and you trust the rest without checking. Then, on that little foundation, a mountain of invention, decorated 3 ways. The names of famous universities, which the video never links and you can never quite find. Numbers with decimal points, because a number that specific sounds like a careful person measured it. And best of all, a secret, a discovery they buried, knowledge taken from you by powerful people so that your failures were never your fault, they were done to you. When you see all of those in one place, you put your hand on your wallet and you back out of the room. That is not knowledge. That is the costume knowledge wears when somebody wants to sell you something, or just wants your attention, which these days is the same as money. Now, the part that made me put my tea down and get a little angry, which I do not often do. The video tells you to hammer galvanized nails, zinc nails, into your vegetable beds, and to drop a zinc nail in a pot of water in each corner so the zinc slowly dissolves down into the soil and, it says, feeds your plants a healthy mineral. Do not do this. I am asking you plainly as one gardener to another. Zinc is not a food you pour into the ground by the handful. A tiny trace of zinc is something plants use, the way a tiny trace of salt is something your body uses. But too much zinc in the soil is a poison to plants. It stunts the roots. It yellows the leaves. It drops your harvest. And here is the cruel part. Once that zinc is in your ground, it does not leave. You cannot rinse it out. You cannot lift it back out with your hands. You would spend the next several seasons staring at small sick plants in a good sunny bed, never guessing the cause was the nails you drove in yourself, on the word of a man who told you it was a secret the government buried. That is exactly why I will not take that video and put my face on it and read it back to you with a Chinese grandmother pasted on for flavor. That advice would cost you the very thing you are trying to grow. So here is the real video instead. The plain answers. The dull, cheap, tested ones my grandmother would nod at. Let me take the same 4 bugs that video promised to kill forever, one at a time. Start with the squash bug. The flat gray one on your zucchini and your pumpkins, walking the leaves like it owns the deed to the land. No metal on earth stops it. What stops it is your own 2 hands and a little attention early in the cool of the morning before the day runs off with you. The squash bug lays her eggs on the underside of the leaf. Small shiny eggs, a copper color, in a neat little raft, usually tucked in the angle where 2 veins meet, as if she is hiding them in a corner. Go out in the morning, turn the big leaves over, and look, really look, and you will find them. Crush them with your thumb or pinch off that piece of leaf and step on it. That is the whole war, and it is won there before a single one hatches. Kill the egg and you never meet the bug. And for the grown bugs already walking, here is the old trick, and it costs nothing. In the evening, lay a flat board on the soil near the base of the plant. Overnight, the squash bugs gather underneath it to hide, because they like a dark, tight place for the night. In the morning, you lift the board, and there they all are, the whole gang, slow and stiff from the cool, collected in one spot for you, and you do what has to be done, quickly, into a can of soapy water. A board. That is the tool. Not a battery buried under your garden, an old board leaning against the shed. Next, the cabbage moth. The little white one flapping all summer over your cabbage and broccoli and kale. Understand first that the moth herself is not eating your plant. She is looking for a place to lay. She sets her egg on the leaf, and out of it comes a small green worm, the exact green of the leaf so you cannot see it, and that worm is the one that chews your cabbage into lace. So you stop her from landing at all. You put a light cover over the plants. A thin cloth, the kind that lets the sun and rain and air through, but is too fine for her to get under. Lay it over some little hoops or sticks so it does not crush the plants, and tuck the edges down. In the village, we did the same with whatever thin, worn cloth we had left, held up on bent sticks over the young greens. She cannot lay on a leaf she cannot reach. That is the entire trick, and unlike the metal, it works completely, every time, because it is a wall she truly cannot pass. And if she got to them before you covered them, you do the same as always. Turn the leaves over and pick the little green worms off by hand. They are slow. They do not bite. It takes 10 quiet minutes, and it does more good than every zinc nail ever hammered into a stake since the beginning of the world. Now the potato beetle, the striped one, the very one that video opened with, showing you those perfect, unblemished Amish potato plants and telling you copper in the ground kept every last beetle away. That beautiful picture is the hook the whole lie hangs on. So let me tell you what actually keeps that beetle off your potatoes. The same honest work. You look and you pick. The potato beetle is a slow, fat, striped thing, easy to see against the leaf, and underneath those leaves, she lays clusters of bright orange eggs, orange as a flame, that you cannot miss once you have learned to turn the leaf over. In the morning, you knock the grown beetles into a can of soapy water and crush every cluster of orange eggs your eye lands on. Do this every few days for the 2 or 3 weeks when they first appear, and you break them, because a beetle you crush as an egg never grows up to lay the next 300. And there is one more old help for the potato: straw. Lay a thick blanket of straw mulch around the plants. The beetle winters down in the soil and climbs up in spring to find them. And a deep, loose straw mulch makes that climb hard and gives cover to the small ground beetles that eat her eggs for you. On top of that, the straw holds water in your soil through the dry weeks so you carry less. It costs 1 bale of straw. There is no penny in a clay pot anywhere in it. And last, the aphid, the soft little green one, crowded in a mob on the underside of your tomato tips and all over the tender new growth. The video spins a long tale about copper stopping the ants that farm them. Here is the short, true version. An aphid is soft and slow and weak, which is your whole advantage. A hard jet of plain water from the hose blasts them off, and an aphid knocked to the ground mostly never finds its way back up. Do that in the morning a few days running, and you break the mob. For a heavier crowd, a little plain soap mixed in water and sprayed straight onto them breaks down their soft bodies. Plain soap, only a little, and test it on a few leaves first and wait a day, because some tender plants do not care for it. But the real answer to the aphid is that you were never meant to fight it alone. The ladybug eats the aphid, and her strange little alligator-shaped children, which most people do not even recognize and squash by mistake, eat far more than she does. The lacewing does the same. If you are not spraying broad poison over everything, these hunters come on their own, for free, and patrol your plants all day while you sleep. Every time somebody panics and sprays a strong poison to kill the aphids, they also kill the ladybug that was on her way to solve it. And the ladybug is slower to return than the aphid, so the aphids come back worse, with nothing left to eat them. The bottle quietly creates the very problem it keeps selling you the cure for. Remember that. It is the whole game, in the garden and out of it. Now here is the one true thing that video actually had. Buried in all its invention, like a single real coin in a bag of painted stones. And I want to hand it to you clean, because it matters more than any single trick. Bugs go for the weak plant first. It is true, and you can prove it to yourself this week. Walk any row and look where the pests are thickest. It will be on the sickliest plant, the pale one, the stunted one in the poor dry corner with the bad soil. A strong plant growing hard in good ground with steady water and food it can take up is a tougher meal and a poorer place to lay eggs. And much of the time, the bug passes it over for the easy, sick one instead. So the deepest pest control there is, under all the tricks, is not a barrier and not a spray, and certainly not a metal. It is good dirt. Compost worked into your beds. Water that comes steady instead of drought one week and flood the next. not crowding your plants so tight that no air moves between them. Grow a strong plant, and you have done more against bugs than any product on any shelf. And that is exactly why no one makes a shouting video about it, because it is slow and it is free, and there is nothing in it to sell you. And yes, there is a small place for ash. If slugs and cutworms are chewing your young seedlings, a ring of dry wood ash scattered around each little stem bothers the soft crawling things the way sharp grit does, and puts a little potash in the ground as it breaks down. But I will be honest with you, the way I always am, even when it makes my own advice sound weaker. The ash only works while it stays dry. The first good rain washes it flat and it is finished. And you go out and scatter it fresh. Anyone who tells you a thing works forever, out in the weather, sitting in the dirt, with never a hand laid on it again, is selling you a dream. Nothing outdoors works forever untended. Not ash, not straw, not a board, and certainly not a penny in a pot of water in the corner of your garden. So let me put the whole thing plainly, and then I will let you go back to your morning. There is no metal that ends every bug forever. There is no buried discovery. There is no secret battery under the garden that the powerful took from you. What there is old and plain and asks a little work of your hands. You go out in the cool of the morning. You turn the leaves over and look. You crush the eggs before they hatch. You cover the young greens the moth is hunting. You knock the soft ones off with water. You lay a board and collect them while they sleep. You mulch with straw. You feed the soil. You grow the plant strong. And above all, you leave the ladybug and the toad and the little wasp alone, so they can do the enormous share of this work that was always theirs, long before you or I ever picked up a hoe. That is not a secret anybody buried. It is only quiet. It does not sell a bottle or a roll of copper or a box of nails. So nobody stands in a bright room and shouts it at you with a number and a decimal point. My grandmother did every one of these things in a poor plot in a poor time, and she never once in her long life heard the word galvanic. And we ate. Every year we ate. Tell me in the comments which bug has driven you the most out of your mind these last few years. The squash bug, the cabbage moth, the potato beetle, the aphid, or some other one I have not named. Tell me where you garden and what the season is like where you are, and what you are truly up against. I read them, all of them. And the real answer is almost always plainer and cheaper and older than whatever expensive miracle you have been sold. And I would far rather give you the plain, true thing than a beautiful story that costs you your harvest. Next time I am going to show you what we did to keep the birds and the bugs off the fruit as it came ripe, with almost nothing, a bit of string and a few small things that turn and catch the light and never stop moving in the wind. It cost us nothing in the village. It still works today. And nobody buried it either. People only forgot it the way they forget everything that does not come in a bottle. Until then, go out and turn over a few leaves and see for yourself what is already living there.